You guys can go ahead.
All right. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Minneapolis Pedestrian Advisory Full Committee meeting for December 1st, 2021. Just a notice that members of the board may participate remotely by telephone or other electronic means due to the local public health emergency of the novel coronavirus pandemic declared on March 16, 2020, pursuant to the provisions of Minnesota Statute Section 13D-021. Hi, everyone.
Hey.
Thanks for joining in. Yeah, if my service cuts out or anything, let me know. Or Raina, I sent you an email. I hope you got it. Is Raina here?
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So then let me know if I have trouble with any service, but I think we're doing well. So first up on the agenda is a roll call. Millicent?
Sorry, I was on mute. Okay, Aaron? Abigail?
Here.
Austin?
Here.
Barb?
I'm here.
Christopher Hoffer?
Here.
Ross? Harmony? Julia?
Here.
Matthew Steinrich?
Here.
Awesome. Neil?
Here, sorry.
Paul?
Here.
Peter?
Here.
Hold on one second. Raina? Not yet. Tamir? Carrie? Jordan? I don't think, let's see. Emma? Eric? Tom? Heidi? Julie?
I'm here.
Awesome.
Yay.
I
Kenzie?
made it.
Kenzie, you here? Ratana?
Present.
Awesome. Sonia?
Steve Mulwald here.
I was going to call your name next, Steve. Okay, Steve. Suzanne?
Here.
Vincent is here. Chris Kartheiser?
Here.
And Matthew Deardahl is not here yet. Okay, we have 15 members present.
Thanks, Millicent. Next up on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda and the acceptance of the meeting minutes for the November 3rd Pedestrian Advisory Committee meeting. We'll do a roll call vote.
All right. Abigail?
Yes.
Austin, do you accept the minutes
Yes.
and everything? Okay, great. Barb?
Yes.
Christopher Hoffer?
Yes.
Julia?
Yep.
Matthew S?
Yes.
Neil?
Aye.
Paul?
Yes.
Peter? Do you accept
Yes.
the minutes and everything?
Yes, I do. Thanks.
Great. All right, 9 accepted.
All right, wonderful. So we'll jump right into the subcommittee reports. And first up is the infrastructure and engineering. Oh, Barb, you're on mute.
Millicent, can you put that up on the screen? The minutes?
Give you a minute here. Let's see.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see that?
Yes.
If you can enlarge it, that would be helpful for me.
Okay.
But I know I can do it. I just haven't figured out how. So. Much better. Thank you. Oh, that's good.
All right.
Okay, Chris, I will go through the minutes and talk about I think there were 4 presentations for us. We have 2 resolutions, which I'll do at the end. We called the meeting to order at 4:32. And the first project that came before us was the Nicolet Avenue Bridge over Minnehaha Creek. It's at 30%. Forrest Hardy from Minneapolis Public Works and Mark Maves from SEH, which I assume is the design group. This is a rehabilitation project. It's not a full reconstruction. The bridge was built, just to give you a little history, in 1923. It was updated. It was built in 1908. And the bridge was, no, wait, it says the bridge was built in 1923 to replace a bridge that was built in 1908. And it was rehabilitated again in 1973 and updated some more in 2002 when it added some wider sidewalks and monuments were added. If you've ever walked over it, there are really wide sidewalks on that bridge. I think it's a really nice bridge. It is eligible for the National Register of Historic Places. It's 816 feet long and 64.4 feet wide, and it has 9 concrete arches. There's 2 vehicle lanes and 2 12-foot sidewalks, and I think there's 7-foot bikeways. They talked about what they're planning to do. They want to narrow the size of the bridge, the width of the bridge. They want to put in 2 8-foot sidewalks and 2 6-foot bikeways and 2, I think it's 2 1.5-foot raised concrete barriers between the bike paths and traffic, vehicle traffic. It is because it is eligible for the National Historic Site. They have to meet certain criteria from that and also from MSSHPO, which has some definitions for the bridge must be preserved and additions must not deter from its historical properties. The PAC questioned whether the bikeway and parkway underneath the bridge would be closed during this particular rehabilitation, and Mark said that he didn't believe that it would be closed during the whole process. There might be times when it has to be closed when they're working on certain aspects of the bridge, but they believe that it will be open, the parkway underneath, during most of the rehabilitation. And we also asked if they had given the climate emergency and greater rainfall events any attention as they designed or prepared to do this. And they said, and we talked about the 100-year flood mark. And they said they're well above that. The bridge is much higher than that mark. And so they certainly are taking some information from sources about the climate change, but they're also pretty confident that they're well above the 100-year flood mark. I hope I'm making sense. I'm trying to read this and it's really little and I'm trying to remember. The timeline for the project is indefinite. They hope to begin construction in 2024, but it could go as late as 2026, I think. I put in the notes 2025 because they hoped for that, but it looks like it might even go longer than that. So that's everything I have for that, unless anybody else who was there has anything they want to add to that. That's what I have for those notes. Okay, can we go down? The next project was the Hennepin and First Avenue multimodal improvements. It's at 15%. Kelsey was there. She came in for Luke Hansen, both from Minneapolis Public Works, and Scott McBride, Corey Christensen, and Colin Harris from Bolton and Menk, and Josh Porter from Hennepin County. This is a project that runs along 40th Avenue. The concept, they have 2 concepts. One has a buffered bikeway on one side of the road and parking on the other side. It has the removal of 2 free right turns and 2 traffic lanes, keeping 2 traffic lanes. Concept 2 has these design elements. It has a protected bikeway with a cement divider similar to the one on the 10th Avenue Bridge. And they also have parking on the other side and the right lane dedicated to transit and 2 lanes of traffic. They will be closing sidewalk gaps on East Hennepin, and there's also a point at which three streets come into East Hennepin, and there's a sort of a V. If you've been over there, it sort of forms a V, and it's really a dangerous place for people to walk across the street or bikes to bike because traffic is coming from lots of directions. So they're hoping to do something specific with that. They weren't really clear on what they were going to do. Maybe a plaza, closing one of the streets to limit it to 2 lanes of traffic coming into that intersection. The remaining decisions regarding types of bikeways, transit, streetscapes, priorities, and on-street parking, they will be working on that. There are many businesses on the corridor, all of whom suffered losses during the pandemic. Concept 1 reduces parking by about 15% and concept 2 by 17%. Several PAC members expressed a strong preference for concept 2, me included, even though they would like to see narrower traffic lanes and a streetscape improvements with maybe more greening and water management. The project will be back in the winter of 2022. They requested a resolution, so that will be one of the resolutions that I read at the end. Okay.
Can you see it?
Yeah, 40th Street Bikeway with Dan Edgerton. This project runs from Kings Highway on the west to Stevens Avenue on the east. It is it involves the East Lake Harriet neighborhood and the Kingfield neighborhoods. The goals are to create a safer and more convenient bikeway, to create enhanced bikeway connections, part of all ages, and it's part of all ages and abilities network. It also wants to be connected to, wants to be consistent with Vision Zero, the Transportation Action Plan, and the Street Design Guide. The proposed concept has a 2-way delineator protected bikeway for 9 miles, almost 0.9 miles. I can't read what that says for. There is a potential for signal modification on Lindale and Bryant, I believe. No, it's totally gone. Wait, let me see if I can read that. Yeah, the parking study revealed that 40th Street has about 64% parking during the busiest time. 64% of the street is filled with vehicles. There's also quite a bit of parking on side streets. The piece from Lindale to Bryant, they have made, they've only got parking on one side of the street. So they've been eliminating some of the parking, which is, I think, a positive step. They also requested a resolution, which will be the last one that I read. Finally, we had City View. That's at 0%. This was presented by Bria Fast of Minneapolis Public Works. The project is on 4th Street North and 34th Avenue North by City View School. There is one of the things that struck me about this is how incredibly fast traffic is in this area. They say a lot of cars are doing twice the speed limit. So if the speed limit posted is 20 or 25 miles an hour, people are doing 40 and 50 miles an hour down the street across from this school. In October and December of 2021, they did engagement with school teachers, students, and parents, as well as the McKinley community. Winter in 22, they'll do the actual initial design. Early spring 22, public engagement on the initial design. And late spring or summer of 22, design revision and public engagement on design revisions, August of 2022. Final design and then construction in spring and fall of 2023. The goals of the project are to make it safe and fun for children to walk and bike from City View School to and from City View School, to enhance pedestrian and bicycle networks, as well as neighborhood amenity connections, to integrate traffic calming elements to reduce vehicle speeds adjacent to the school, and to fulfill city goals for complete streets, Vision Zero, all ages and all abilities, bikeways, transportation equity, and climate change. 4th Street has speeds, like I said, sometimes twice the posted signs, and drivers don't obey signage. This project will be back to see us again in midwinter. And I think that's all I have to say about that. So if you could go back to the resolutions, Melissa, and I'll read those. Okay, resolution number 1, that's for Hennepin and the First Avenue project. The Pedestrian Advisory Committee strongly supports concept 2 with protected bike lanes and the dedicated transit lane. We would like to see 10-foot traffic lanes and more streetscape improvements.
Second.
Any discussion on this one?
Just to note, everybody, the Bicycle Advisory Committee actually have in their resolution that they would like to see concept 1 tabled and not presented anymore as even an option. So like they just kind of strengthen their argument. If we wanted to do that, I don't know if it's necessary because I think this is a pretty strong, short and sweet resolution, but I just wanted to let everybody know that.
That's good to hear. I'm glad they're doing that.
I was
Yes.
thinking about
Is there
something
any-
like that. Sorry, for the next one. So I'm wondering if maybe it would be good to put in this one if we've got language we can pull from the back for, and then maybe something like that for the next resolution as well that we can add in quickly.
Good. Okay. Well, I'll read the next one. And then if we want to make amends, we can make amendments to both of them. 40th Street Bikeway resolution. The Pedestrian Advisory Committee supports the improvements to the bikeway on 40th Street. We appreciate the two-way protected bikeway, especially between Bryant and Lindale, where as called for by the Transportation Action Plan, public space is being reallocated for people and away from parking.
Second.
Can you be clear about what you want to change, Julia, or how you want to deal with that? The edits?
Sorry, I think just as long as we end up so that with the Hennepin first project, we should not have seen both of the projects. One of them shouldn't have been presented in my view. And I feel like that's what the back was getting at in the addition that Abigail shared. But I don't remember the wording, so I defer to the wording that Abigail shared. It seemed succinct.
So we could add the wording that we said we would ask that option or concept no longer be presented. Is that what you said?
Yeah, or pursued. Yep.
Or
yeah,
pursued.
it just seems like a waste of time to show something that far from meeting basic standards.
Is language in the first clause there, if we say the Pedestrian Advisory Committee supports only concept 2?
Oh, that might be a good change.
Did you guys want to see the BAC's resolution?
Yeah.
Sure.
Hold
That'd be
on one
great.
second.
Thank you.
Wait, hold on one second.
MTV's in town.
All right, can you see them both side by side here?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Advisory Committee recommends that Hennepin Avenue, First Avenue, protect. Pursue concept 2 exclusively because it includes a curb protected bikeway and a dedicated transit line.
How about we just say we agree
Like-
with the BAC, the concept 1 should be dropped.
Hey, everybody, since we're using this, could we read it out loud?
Oh,
Ah,
sure. I'll read it out loud. Hennepin Avenue, First Avenue, Northeast Multimodal Improvements Project Resolution, BAC. The Minneapolis Bicycle Advisory Committee recommends that the Hennepin Avenue, First Avenue Northeast Multimodal Improvements Project team pursue concept 2 exclusively because it includes a curb protected bikeway and a dedicated transit lane. Concept 1 lacks both of these features, and by taking very minimalist approach to any changes from existing condition. It fails to fulfill the promise of a major project in achieving safety improvements. We recommend that any further pursuit of Concept 1 be discontinued and that further community engagement focus on variations of Concept 2. We commend the team on their proposal for improving and simplifying the intersection of 5th Street and Hennepin and Central.
Would we be interested in just taking that third paragraph, that one sentence? We recommend that any further pursuit of Concept 1 be discontinued, and just like put that at the end of our resolution?
That works for me.
And then
Yeah, I
we
don't know if
could make
anybody
the
else
one
does.
other change that says the Pedestrian Advisory Committee only supports Concept 2. I think Peter's idea was a good one.
Yeah, to add that as well.
Okay, say that again one more time.
So,
The Pedestrian Advisory
add-
Committee only
oh, no,
supports
you don't have
Concept.
to add anything.
You don't have
Millie.
to add that. That's in the first line of
So
the
Millie,
resolution.
after the word
Slow down.
supports in the first line, just add the word only.
Okay.
Strongly supports only. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
that's all right.
I would remove strongly.
Yeah, I think you've got to, because it means something else. It means that you support Concept 1 a little bit. I think if you take out strongly, it means supports only Concept 2.
Yeah, and we're not endorsing that design at all, really. We're just saying we support it far, just we support it only. It could be a lot better.
Okay,
May I make one more?
Sure.
In the second sentence, starting with we would like to see no greater than 10-foot wide traffic lanes.
Okay, good.
I have a question about the presentation that was presented at this meeting, if you can. Did the presenters talk about how this new project or concept ties into what was already reconstructed just a little bit east on Hennepin Avenue, where they brought the street down to 2 lanes of traffic? Did anybody talk about how this project ties into what already has occurred on East Hennepin Avenue?
All I recall them talking about was that they wanted to continue to add to the easy bike access to this street and to address the issues. So that I don't remember a specific, if anyone else was there, if you remember a specific reference to that, I don't recall.
Not in the way that I'm understanding it. I think it would have been great. That's a lovely question, but I don't remember it being covered or asked.
I don't think so either.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I think in my head, it makes sense for it to be cohesive. And eventually what I would like to see is East Hennepin the whole way down to the city line be reconstructed to be more pedestrian friendly, because it is very much like a highway through the east side. So that's why I was asking if people had talked about that, and maybe that wasn't presented at this meeting.
No.
So I did bring up the far east edge because that's just so bad for walking, especially on the north side. There just isn't the width for it. So, but I didn't bring it up in going east outside of the project area. But we did touch on that portion, the block that has kind of a split and weird fences. And
any other questions or additions to the first resolution, the Hennepin and First Avenue project?
I don't know if we need to point out that the bike or the back mentioned that only project option 2 had the protected bike lanes, and there's also sidewalk gaps that are only filled in option 2. I don't know if we need to say that explicitly or not. That's the only other thing I can think of.
It was my understanding that the sidewalk gap that was going to be repaired would be repaired in both concepts. Julia,
So there's additional sidewalk gaps. They didn't show us sidewalk gaps. There's non-usable, like there's stuff that doesn't show up on theirs that if you are walking the area is functionally, you couldn't walk it with somebody with a wheelchair. using a wheelchair. It would just be so.
So they didn't present that or talk about that. I don't recall. When I was
No,
reading
I think I might have.
Go ahead.
I think I either brought it up or thought I was bringing it up, but they didn't call that out. I don't think it shows up as a sidewalk gap in the maps that they have, because a lot of their maps are intersection based and don't get into what's in between the intersections.
So did you want to address that in some language?
Only if other people do. Otherwise, it seems like it might just add confusion since I didn't state it clearly during the meeting. So skip it unless other people think we need to.
Anyone else?
Let's drop it.
Okay.
Short and sweet.
And the resolutions went away, but does anybody want changes to the second resolution?
Can you see it up there again, Barb?
Yep, it is here. Yep. Any questions or additions? If not, both resolutions, can we make sure that we have a second for the first resolution with its amendments?
So moved.
Okay. And
Awesome.
do we take a roll call for these?
So can we
can
take a
vote.
roll call vote for both? Yeah.
Okay, let's do that.
Ready?
Yes.
Abigail,
Yes.
Austin,
Yes.
Yes.
Christopher Hoffer,
Yes.
Julia,
Yes.
Matthew S.,
Yes.
Neil,
Aye.
Paul,
Yes.
Peter.
Yes.
Is there anyone else here who is eligible to vote that I don't have? Came in after the roll call. All right, so that's 9 yeses for both resolutions.
That's all for
Awesome.
I&E. Thank you.
Barb, that was a big old meeting
Thanks,
for you to
Barb.
take all by yourself with notes and everything. So I really thank you for that. That's a ton of work. It was great.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Thanks, Barb.
Sure.
Next up would be our Pnp Subcommittee Report.
Julia, I'll kick that off. Is that all right? Try to
Perfect.
answer the back channel. Okay. All right. Good. Thank you. We had 4 items for the November PNP. ADA is transition update is listed first. I'm going to save that for last because it's the one I think we have some there was like some subsequent discussion I'd like to cover. Skipping that for now, we had the CIP overview where Mike Samuelson was in for the first kind of go round to discuss, well, the minutes are comprehensive. Once again, I need to thank Neil Moore for all the note taking he does, the minutes he takes for our subcommittee. So appreciate that. So refer everybody to those, but kind of overall, what comes next is a resolution that's due early in 2022 per Mike and the CIP team. We'll be revisiting at PNP our previous resolution again, the efforts there, and generate a fresh resolution based on previous work, I'm sure, where we once again promote our PAC values and the interest that we want CIP to reflect in their project selection and design. And that's, I would welcome my co-chairs' input at this point on that, and certainly anyone's discussion points or questions about that presentation.
Solid summary.
Thank you. All right. The next we had Ethan Fowley came in to discuss the process. Again, he informationally brought before us the Metro Council regional solicitation process, which is a set of $100 million that the Metro Council has to offer for projects under this kind of definition. It's a points-based evaluation that the Met Council uses to score and award project monies at $100 million. Ethan came and listed some projects shown in the minutes that the City of Minneapolis pitching for this money, and emphasized how the process works by the point scoring, and also the non-point factors that were important to certainly point to everybody here, like things like the even split of locations of the submitted projects between north and south and so forth. Don't have anything more on that. Overall, so they're still finalizing selection of the 10 to 15 projects, and it'll go from there. So informational no resolution was asked for, so that's the bulk of that. And any feedback or questions there, I invite at this time. At the end of the meeting, before I get back to the ADA thing, our last item there, the strategic approach to making changes, part of our kind of a continuing discussion on ways to look at and ways to persuade people and agencies towards their implementation. Like look at how we look at the work we want done, the values we want expressed in our projects and programs at the city level. So let me get back to the ADA component. Amy and Kathleen from the city came in to present a draft of the ADA transition plan. So an update on the draft of the ADA transition plan, reviewed every 2 years, and what we saw, what we heard was a discussion of the tools that they're using to presenting various tools they use to assess the different components of ADA, and talked about the monies that are available to them, new monies that are available for a new FTE specific to this ADA transition work, and again covered in the minutes. So very informational, very I guess I'm going to talk personally now. It was very much a kind of a here's what we're talking about planning to revisit, to update, and the lack of specifics. Again, when we asked about specifics, we were told, and again, I'm pleased anybody was there, correct my assessment, but it felt like a lot of, but that's not us. We're the planning people. We're not the implementation people. So we were reluctant, if not, at the very least, to talk about specifics that were, specific questions that were brought up by the Pnp attendees. So that's where the meeting ended. Fortunately, our chair Abigail Johnson got an email in the interim since the Pnp meeting, and I'm going to kind of give you an overview of that. Someone noticed that the ADA transition plan was up on this for discussion in November, and an interested party, a Minneapolis citizen wrote in to express some pointed thoughts on the lack of specifics. And so with that, while we didn't discuss a resolution at the time, what we're at Pnp, what we'd like to talk about, I'm sure we'll revisit it in December towards a resolution to bring up some of the collective disconcert with what we're seeing from what we've seen in terms of ADA presentations, not just this month, but certainly the last one we saw too. So the subjects being, specifics as to pedestrian curb ramps, that is counting where are the specifics and counting them up, where are the specifics and how the monies we have, how long will it take us to get to ADA compliance on things like pedestrian curb ramps, on traffic signals, again, lack of specifics as to assessment and timeline as to their correction. And sidewalks too, where the presentation talk about planning for a sidewalk inventory is underway. Felt a little disappointing. So that once again, talk about, again, ask for, hopefully compel the city to bring back specific plans as to this inventory and how long it should take in terms of money and calendar to get those done. And finally, street crossings, again, not seeing a lack of specific identification of accessibility challenged street crossings. So, and that goes along with other things like winter maintenance as it affects ADA compliance and construction barriers, etc. So I guess in summation, on the ADA component, it's like we have no work product out of there this month, but we will be revisiting it, I think, as soon as December to bring some barrels to bear on that topic. Julia, how does that sound?
That's excellent. Thank you, Peter.
Any other questions, comments?
So the email was from a citizen, not the.
Right, and what's a good way to, what's a compliant way to I guess get that out to everybody? Am I free to forward that out to the membership?
If you ever want to email the whole membership, just blind copy everybody so that nobody responds to it, because it does break quorum if there's a quorum on the email chain, that's not allowed. But if you want to send it blind, that works.
Thank you. That's what I'll do. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Peter.
That's all I got.
Okay. And I was thinking too, I want to kind of relook at the presentation that was given on that, and then reread the email, and maybe even come up with a draft resolution idea or some ideas, so that maybe when we go into our December Pnp committee meeting, we could have some ideas on paper and then kind of workshop around that to maybe have a resolution of sorts. If that sounds good to you guys.
That sounds great.
Okay, awesome. So that's programs and policies, which is great because a lot of that stuff is stuff that we need to plan for so that we can do resolutions in the future, in the next month or two. And with that, we're on to our discussion items. And the first one will be the 2022 calendar that Millicent is going to share with us.
Hi, everybody. So we've got a pretty good draft of the 2022 calendar. I'll just pull it up on the screen so you guys can see it. It's not official yet, mainly because we've got a bunch of new council members being sworn in next year. There are a lot of changes coming, and so we aren't really able to finalize any 2022 dates until at least the new council is sworn in, I think, on January 10th. So we're able to schedule things for the first week of January. So I should have that stuff up on LIMS by the end of next week. But basically, the rest of the dates for the year are kind of set. And I can send this to the members if that's okay. I'm not really sure. But that's it. So we've got the calendar ready to go. We just need to go ahead from the council. And there are a few dates that have been changed because of holidays. For example, let's see, September 19th is the Pnp, and we have to have it on that date because of Rosh Hashanah.
Oh, yeah.
And then we have to have the December Pnp on December 19th. And all of the engineering dates should be okay, except, let's see, yeah, all of those are okay. And then our full committee meeting on October 6th, we have to have it one day later. Because, yeah, the 5th, I think the 3rd through the 5th is Yom Kippur, and we're not allowed to have any city meetings. So we're gonna have it on Thursday, and we'll be sending out some reminders, hopefully soon enough so everybody can readjust. And then I think on March 9th, that instead of the first Wednesday, I think we're having it on the second Wednesday because it's too close to the PNP meet, I think. Was that correct?
Yeah, the 21st is a holiday.
Well, no, it's because February 28th just like it just happens to, it's a weird calendar thing where it just happens to be like the day before our, well, 2 days before our PAC meeting, so it's not enough time. But that doesn't happen any other time throughout the year. It's just a weird coincidence. We just thought we'd move it the back one.
Oh, that's right. Of course, it is the 4th Monday.
So as soon as we're able to make these dates official by the clerk's office, we'll update everyone and send out the new calendar, but it's mostly made.
Milton, I see 2 hands are raised.
Oh, sure.
But I think people have some questions. I don't know who raised their hand first.
Let's see. Peter, you have your hand up?
Hi, yeah, thanks. This is a question about the calendar as it's how notices are sent out. So what I'm talking about is like, for instance, I was accustomed to getting delivery generated announcements for I&E, P&P, and then full PAC. Now, was that entirely in my control? Because they stopped coming. Did I turn those off, or is that something that's pushed out from the PAC side? Is that part of the staff process at all, or just?
We're still sending them out for every meeting, so I can go onto the list and make sure your name is still there. I'm not sure why. Maybe you can go into it also and see if maybe you turned it off or you only had it sending it to you for a certain amount of time. I know a couple of other people were just having gov delivery notices sent once a month. So that means they would miss all the other ones. They would just get them once a month. So I can look for your name and make sure it's on the list.
Or yeah, if that's all I would need right now. I did go ahead and make sure I had my settings set right, before this meeting, so I can let you know if they don't start coming subsequently too. So thank you.
Okay.
That's all. Thank you.
Christopher?
Yes, these are 2 sort of maybe tangential questions. The first being, is there any update on remote versus in-person meetings? And the only reason I ask is I plan to be remote a little bit this winter, but nothing new's been surfaced.
Not that I've heard. Matthew?
Chris, do you have other? I was going to say also no.
No.
Okay.
But I think what we do know is that, and again, Chris, I may have gotten this wrong in my mind, but what I do know is that we will stay exactly how it's been until it's different, and then once it's different, it'll probably not be like it is now at all. And so I think it'll probably be remote until the city says it's time to do something different, which could be any time. But the more we hear about COVID variants and rates and things like that, the more I think it's not going to be soon.
And this might be just speculation on your part, but I welcome it. Has there been discussions on whether it will go from remote to in-person or a period of hybrid? Has that been discussed?
Yeah, it will be to in-person immediately. There won't be like a leeway for hybrid. But basically, once the emergency order is lifted by the city, then the state law goes into effect, which says that it has to be in person, except for there's a few I don't know, loopholes or things like that. For the most part, concerning like illness and things like that. But for the most part, everyone would be expected to come back to just in person. What we don't know is like it could be like a week before our meeting and they'll say, okay, they all have to be in person now, and it's like a mad dash, or it could be like we get a month or two to like figure it out. Like we just really don't know what it's going to look like, but we'll communicate as soon as we have an understanding of what that is.
Thank you for that. And just this is complete doesn't matter, but on the agendas and that kind of thing for the full committee meeting, it still has me as vice chair, and I think we should put Raina in on that. So
okay, sorry.
Thank you. No problem. Thanks.
Thanks, Millicent. Are there any other questions or comments for the calendar for Millicent or the Public Works team? Awesome. Millicent, is there anything else to add before we move on?
Nope. Hopefully, whenever they let us schedule all the meetings, you'll hear about the calendars being updated.
Great.
Thanks, Millicent.
Thanks so much for the updates. Yeah, we appreciate it. Next up, as you can see on your screen, is Chris Kartheiser with the 2021 year-end review.
Sorry, 1 second. Just gotta get my screens working. All right, there we go. Okay, so I have the pleasure tonight of going through the year-end review, which we do this every year. We just go through the various projects that were built and typically finished entirely in this past year's construction season. So some of you who have been on the PAC for a while probably commented on some of these projects. Some folks who are newer may not have heard about them at all just because of the time it takes to construct some of the big ones. And then some of them probably came through this year and were built this year just as a kind of a function of how our projects work. But I will just jump right in. Oh, and this first picture here, I'll talk a little bit more about it later, but this is over at Little Earth on 18th Ave, and Yasna has done some cool placemaking stuff in the last year. So we'll touch on that a little bit more. So this past year, the PAC was back in full as compared to last year. I think we were out for 3 months or something like that due to COVID, not meeting at all. This year, we didn't have a meeting in January, but aside from that, met every month for the full meetings and passed 38 PAC resolutions, which is about typical for us. So a lot of work in all that time. And you can go and look at these various resolutions on the website here. I won't read off every single one there, but a lot of stuff happening. So I kind of broke this into two things. So projects that are funded by programs, and then projects that are funded as standalone, like reconstruction projects. And just for folks who may not be super familiar, that's kind of how the CIP is broken down. It has various projects like reconstruction projects that are standalone line items, and then also programs where we have a certain amount of money and we get a little bit more leeway as staff to kind of figure out what those projects are within those programs. So I'll go through some of those. So the North Loop Pedestrian Safety Project here downtown, I think, what is it, 8th downtown? I think you'll notice that we've been doing a lot more green infrastructure stuff since our green infrastructure coordinator first started, I think, a few years ago, and now we have 2 people on that team. So this wasn't entirely done, but you can see some of the green infrastructure put in there on the bump out, as well as a marked crosswalk. And then over in Northeast here, this used to be my old commute route, so I wish this was in place a couple years ago, but a nice new addition on 2nd Street Northeast and 3rd Ave Northeast. Also a pedestrian safety project, so both of these come out of our BP 004 program, our pedestrian safety program, which is something that the PAC historically kind of advocated for and helped push to get that funding to exist in the first place. So this is a cool project that put a median on this intersection to help with crossing distances and being able to take one lane in each direction. And it also has that 3rd Ave trail on one side of the intersection there. So they built out that kind of protected aspect as well. The Farview Park sidewalk gap. So this is in North Minneapolis, and there was just a sidewalk gap along the park there. And Katie White worked on this. The photos here don't show it quite as much, but they also were able to use this beyond just the sidewalk gap. I believe they also added like a bump out at one of the intersections and improved the crossing safety there. I'm pretty sure this is actually kind of around where that Safe Routes to School project, the City View project is that Barb was talking about earlier with the really high speeds. And there were definitely kind of some speeding complaints out on this place too. So they were able to put a bump out there to help with that a little bit. The Whittier Lindale Bikeway, which if anyone has been out, is mostly finished. I think they're still working on some stuff this year, but there's a lot of stuff out there, but I think maybe some more to be done. Matthew can correct me if I'm wrong, but you can see some of these pictures show we haven't done a lot of this, but that kind of Irish cream paint out there is used to delineate, like there will be bollards on the edges of that where the paints are, and that just kind of changes the roadway even more, thins things up. You can see it kind of creates this smaller lane of travel here for cars to go through the intersection. I'm really excited to go check this out. This is a two-way intersection here. I believe this is, I'm not sure exactly which cross street that is, but two-way bikeway for a lot of it. And so some cool design went into that. The Franklin Avenue resurfacing. So if you've heard us talk about our advisory bike lanes and been wondering what that looks like in practice, this is an advisory bike lane that has parking on one side of the street. And this was done with our resurfacing program. Amy Morgan was working on this, and I think this turned out really well. It looks nice out there. Our ADA ramp program, which I think is a new program either last year or maybe this year. I can't remember exactly. But these are just a couple examples of the ADA ramp program, as opposed to a lot with any project where we touch the intersection, we'll go through and upgrade the ramps to be for ADA to meet ADA requirements. But this is a program that goes through kind of residential neighborhoods or other areas just on its own, just to bring us up to speed on our ADA compliance in that regard with ramps. And then this is the 18th Ave Little Earth Transportation Study and Demonstration Project that the title slide had as well, that Yasna was working on. So Yasna actually did a really unique, cool thing where she went and worked out of the Little Earth offices for, I'm not even sure how long exactly, but like for an extended period of time, a day or a couple days a week or something like that. She was in their office and kind of building relationships and working on this stuff. And we went out for a site visit as staff and met with her and one of the staff folks there to see it. And it's really cool work out here. Engaged a lot of kids. They were able to pay kids for their time as like for putting the art on the street, and kind of turned it into more of like an internship type experience as opposed to just a volunteer sort of thing and stuff like that. So some cool stuff out there. And some of these like temporary treatments here, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, a lot of these barriers went up just from people in the neighborhood during the uprising after George Floyd was killed. And so some of these were just made permanent. It was kind of the city taking what some of the residents had done and working with them to figure out where to keep those and how to make the streets safer in general. And then our Vision Zero quick build projects. These, I don't think this shows all of them out here, but that list shows everywhere that we put things this year. So on Lindale, on Chicago, at Bryant and Dowling, and then also at Nicolet, a number of projects, just kind of those temporary things. Obviously, we have big lofty goals with Vision Zero about getting to a very big, I think it was about 100 miles of streets in a few years. So this is part of being able to reach that goal. And I really like this bottom right one, the 4-to-3 conversion on Lindale Ave North, south of Broadway. I biked on that when I was going to check out my pedestrian project north of Broadway earlier this year. And previously, before this, it was just 4 lanes, undivided, and not a pleasant place to be on a bike at all. I had someone kind of running up against my rear wheel with their car on this, so a much needed improvement out there. Also partnered with Metro Transit on some D-line stations. These were the only photos that I could get, but I believe those are still in process. And for the most part, most of the Minneapolis stations are built. There may be some work left to do on these. And then getting into the reconstruction projects. So these are the standalone reconstruction projects. And I forgot to say this at the beginning, but last year when I put this presentation together, I think I had maybe like 6 slides because there just wasn't a lot of work. It was sort of an off budget year for whatever reason. And I think it's showing up in how much work was done this year. So you'll see from these reconstruction projects that there's a good amount that was completed this year. So Hennepin Ave downtown, which everyone on here I believe is familiar with, and we went out and took a little pack field trip to this one as well. So that's partially done, and there's still more phases to be complete with the rest of this project. Johnson Street Northeast, nobody had any really good pictures. I like these pictures because it shows the pedal power kids group that, if any of you know Dan Miller from the BAC, he's helped out with that group quite a bit. But so these are cool to see them using this facility already. But Johnson, I think there's some other things that would be nice to get some good photos if you haven't gotten a chance to get out there. I think it's a really cool project. Some in-lane transit stops, as well as a trail on the west side, I believe it is, of the street. And then 35W coming through had a couple projects that impacted some city streets and areas. So at Lake Street and 35W, there was some work done, put in some benches and trash cans, and kind of redid the transit stop there as well. And then nearby, at the Greenway, this is also a connection from, I believe it connects up to Lake Street to the Greenway. I actually can't quite remember, but this is also another connection that was installed with 35W. And then Luella Anderson, so this is on West River Parkway, kind of close-ish to Minnehaha Falls area. And Abdullahi, before he left the city, was working on this project, and it has big wide trail along the school, as well as bumping out in a few different areas, and kind of adding in some protected, you can't quite see it in this picture here, and this is before the construction's complete. So that hence the standing water, but there's kind of some protected bicycle elements at the intersection there as well. And Grand Avenue, again, they kind of in the process of wrapping up this construction when these photos were taken out there today. I believe it's entirely done, but we also took a site visit as staff out to this, and it looks great. A lot of really narrow streets, in-lane transit stops with medians to stop cars from going around the buses. At Grand and 40th, there's a protected intersection type of design that'll facilitate a two-way bikeway on 40th that just came through the engineering committee just recently. And then 4th Street downtown, which is also a really cool project. Again, another raised cycle track, two-way protected bikeway on the northeast side of the street, between like City Hall and Hennepin Avenue downtown. And again, you'll see outside City Hall here, some of the green infrastructure, and that green infrastructure goes along the entirety of the corridor there. And it looks like maybe you can kind of see it. It's a little further back in there, but there's some cool protected elements where 4th Street meets 3rd downtown as well, with some raised, this is essentially a raised curb that will stop cars from parking too close to this bump out here. So cars will not be able to get any further so that bikes can come up on here, and also that way they won't be kind of like blocking line of sight for pedestrians and things like that. I think this might be the last one, but Plymouth and Penn. So Plymouth to the western border of the city, I believe the Theoworth Parkway, also incorporates some off-trail, off-street bicycle elements here. And this was Dan Edgerton from Zan Associates, who worked as a consultant for the city, who took the lead on this project. Oh, one more, 10th Ave Bridge. This is a Simon Blensky project that he did most of the work on before he left the city, and it's a major improvement to this. Again, something I wish had been in place when I was over using this bridge a lot, but a two-way bikeway, curb protected, as well as major expansions of the pedestrian realm on both sides of the street to make that a much more comfortable bridge to move along for people walking and biking. And it doesn't stop. Downtown East. So this is, I'm going to get the street wrong. I think it's 10th and 3rd downtown, but near US Bank, just kind of sandwiched between Hiawatha Trail and Washington downtown. There's a cool little cut through that was added. I think it wasn't even initially kind of proposed as part of this project, but through engagement and just kind of thinking through, it added this connection from the Hiawatha Trail here straight across to Washington Avenue, and you can easily get to kind of Gold Medal Park from there as well. And also links up with 11th, which has this off-street protected facility as well. And that's it. So nice to just look back on all that stuff. I think some of those look familiar to folks who've been on the committees this year, and some of them maybe we haven't talked about for a year or two or something like that with the reconstructions. But happy to take any questions or comments, but mostly just kind of wanted to show you all some of the impact that you've had on our engineering projects in the last year. Christopher?
Yeah, I really appreciate that. That was great. I had sort of forgotten some of these projects, and to have them all in one stretch is great. So thank you for that. And also just quickly, I don't know if Neil caught for the minutes that the paint delineation wasn't tan like I thought. It was actually Bailey's original Irish cream color. I think that's what Chris said. So yeah. It's very, very fancy. I didn't catch that. I just thought it was tan. So thank you.
One of our planners, Trey Joyner, who you might recognize, is always talking about the Irish cream. He's been pushing for Irish cream for years, so I gotta give it the highlight. Peter?
Yeah, thanks for that. There's two things there. That 10th Avenue Bridge is remarkably slower. I mean, just in my couple of trips across there, it's like I found myself getting annoyed for the drivers who are driving too slow because I'm trying to take pictures. So it's really noticeable. And that was at least in the early going. Looks great, feels great, both sides. Grand Avenue is on the other Grand Avenue project. That's supposed to complete to Lake Street. Is that right? Because it's
yeah, it goes to Lake Street.
It doesn't yet, so that's next year. I
or maybe it stops one block short. Matthew, is
as of today, it is not. There's nothing north of 36th or 38th.
Is that a phased one, Matthew? That
it's Julie. I can actually. Oh, go ahead, Matthew.
No, please, Julie.
I was gonna. I live in the neighborhood, and so I believe it stops at 38th, and it is phased, and then it'll go 38th to Lake. I think next season.
Fabulous. What's there looks fantastic. It's great.
Thanks, Julie. And Barb?
Yeah, this is just a personal comment. The 18th Avenue one by Little Earth, I worked 30 years there. I'm so excited to see that done because I worked right across the street from Little Earth, and I liked seeing the street closures and all the work that they did. That was fabulous. I wish I was still working there. It would be much better. So.
Yeah, Yasmin did a great job. I honestly, it's a different kind of project than a reconstruction, but that'd probably be my project of the year if I had to give one.
It's great.
Cool. Well, that's all I've got. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Chris. Next up on the agenda would be any announcements. Feel free to raise your
Julie.
hand or to
Julie must have
shout
one.
out.
Of course I do.
Ah,
It is, we've dubbed it Grants Galore. There are several Safe Routes to School grants that are open right now through MnDOT, and I'm pleased to say us and partners are applying for many of them. And so there's planning grants that are available. We know Sheridan School is going to be submit an application for a planning grant, and they are on Broadway and Central. So that will be, I think, a fantastic plan. We've seen these plans be really powerful for schools with infrastructure to follow, and so we're excited to see them take the leap, because really you're signing up for a lot of work, right? It's not money, but it has some great yields. We also are going to be applying to update our Safe Routes to School district-wide strategic plan. We're about 5 years into our current one, maybe 6, and really have been able to accomplish much of what is in there. And so we will also be applying to update that. And there's also a boost grant that's available, which is non-infrastructure programming, which is $50,000. In the past, it had been $30,000. And so we're kind of developing our project ideas for that as well. And then we also just learned, I don't think I'm any spoiler alerts, but the city, our colleague Amy Morgan, or she has a new last name, Barnsdorf, I believe. We have a Walking Routes for Youth map that was done with a Safe Routes to School grant, gosh, probably like in 2015-ish is when it was completed. And it looks like the city will be applying for a planning grant to update that map as well. So lots happening. Whoops.
Awesome. Thanks, Julie. Anybody else have any announcements or notes for us?
A guest has a hand up. Abdi Ali.
Hey guys, sorry to bother you guys. Yeah, my name is Abdi Ali, and I'm a travel instructor for blind students in the city of Minneapolis. And I was just wondering, I spoke with Katie at Public Works of Minneapolis. She actually told me to come to the PAC. My question was, and it might not be appropriate right now, I completely understand, if there was such a thing as a 0-point map for the city of Minneapolis, and if not, like, what steps can be taken to create one for visually impaired pedestrians. And thank you guys for letting me speak. Take care.
Hey,
That's
Abdi.
a wonderful question.
Could I ask for that to be described a little more? I don't quite fully understand.
Yes,
Abdi,
sir.
could you explain that?
Yeah. So I actually moved from the city of Denver. And so in Denver, we have a 0-point map where, like, there's 2 streets. One street runs north and south, and another street runs east and west. And you use those as reference points. So, for example, if I told you this street is 12 blocks east of Broadway, like that, like just in your mind, like it kind of looks like graphing, if that makes sense. So if you're in the southeast quadrant of the city and you're 12 blocks east of the 0-point, you would know almost exactly where you were. I've looked for that in Minneapolis, but just again, I have not seen the fine one. So I hope that makes sense, like me explaining it more.
It doesn't. Just so I understand, there's one 0-point for each city. That's the base that everything is negotiated off.
Yeah. So one 0-point that runs north and south, and another 0-point that runs east and west.
Right.
And they like intersect. Okay. Yes, sir.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I guess I can reply and say that we do not have that map, is my understanding. And my name is Matthew Beard. I'm Bicycle and Pedestrian Coordinator in Public Works, and I staff this committee. So I will say that is a fantastic question at this point that we could, ask about. I frankly don't know much about that. So
if you'd be interested in and have time to attend the programs and policies meeting, I think it would be, I'd love to hear a little bit more about what that map is and how it functions and how they come to be, if they're organically evolving or if it's something that is overseen. But if that might be, if you might have more time to talk about it with us, I'd be very interested, but I understand if you're just looking for answers, and I don't have any more than anyone else does at this point.
No. Of course, I'll always have time. Thank you so much, and just let me know when and where I'll be there.
I'm
Awesome.
Do we have a way of contacting you, or would you be able to contact our chair or myself or Peter?
Abdi, I can send you the meeting invitation, and we can see if you can just join us.
Yes, ma'am. That would be perfect.
Thanks,
Yes,
Madison.
I think it'll be a later Monday in December will be the Pnp meeting. And that actually times in well because we are discussing our the ADA report. So they do every 2 years. I don't know if you caught the earlier part of this meeting, Abdi, but
yes, ma'am.
The city had kind of updated us on where they are on like the ADA plan they have for the city. And we actually are planning on discussing that and coming up with a resolution, and potentially after discussing this map with you, we could add that to our resolution, potentially if we wanted to request that the city consider that be part of their ADA plan.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, that sounds perfect.
and I just want to clarify, Nelson, do you have Abdi's contact?
I thought I could just get his email address from this meeting, but I don't think so.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Abdi, do you mind if can I just read you my email? These are recorded in public, so I'd rather give you mine than have you verbally give me yours.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Okay. Should I give you my email or phone number?
Whichever one you prefer.
Okay, I'll give you the email. It's Matthew, so MATTHEW .Deardahl, and that's spelled DYRDAHL at minneapolismn.gov, and then we'll get you information.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Matthew.
Perfect. And then if you could spell that last name for me again, Matthew.
Yeah, it's DYRDAHL.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Matthew.
Yeah. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Awesome. And I see someone else raise their hand.
Steve Mohwald.
Yes, I suspect everyone's kind of tuned into it, but we have a number of changes, service changes coming up Saturday. Some good news with the opening of the Orange Line and new connecting service associated with that. Also, some not so good news in the number of routes we're suspending. So, but I suspect that folks probably are tuned into that. But if not, I take a look at our site to check to check out the details. Need any more information? Let me know.
Hey, Steve, just a quick question that just popped up from that. Do you know if Metro Transit sends out like mailers to homes within a certain distance of new routes or like expanded routes or anything like that? I think it'd be like an interesting opportunity to be like, hey, you live here, you can get downtown in 20 minutes or something like that. And I don't know if Metro Transit does like address targeting like that or not.
Thanks for the question, Chris. Yes, we do. For when we're, such as with the Orange Line service.
Cool, thanks.
Awesome. Any other questions or comments? before we close the meeting? All right. With that, I'll move to adjourn.
A second.
Thanks everybody for attending.
Thank
you. It's been great to see everybody's faces.
Good one, y'all.
Thanks everybody.
Take care.